Alright, so we're going to be working on a little Davis Creek's Obsidian here. I haven't made any flint knapping videos before. Recently did an art show here locally, and people were asking me, you know, do you make any videos about this, or who do you recommend? And I said, no, I don't make any videos. I said, I can give y'all some recommendations. There's a lot of people out there way better than I am, but it kind of, you know, I've kind of been thinking about it for a while, so I thought, well, why not? Right off the bat, cut myself on a piece of that. I don't wear any gloves or anything. I know I should, but I don't. And, you know, I know there's a lot of other people that don't. I try to keep some super glue handy. So far, knock on wood, no hospital trips related to flint knapping. So we're just going to try to knock this into a blade of some sort. Kind of have a love-hate relationship with Obsidian. I love how easy it flakes, but I kind of hate how sharp it is, and I hate how easy it breaks. So we'll see what we can do here. I'm not the best percussion knapper in the world. I definitely rely pretty heavy on my indirect stick, but we're not quite to that point yet, so see what we can get her down into a usable biface. What I'm trying to do right now is just get some parallel edges. You know, we want to make sure that we're getting good flakes off of it, get it thinned down a little bit more. I probably start on the indirect stage a little early usually. I'm going to try to get these, if you can see here, these humps and things like that off right through this far side. And you know, the way you do that, if you're learning, is you want to get your platform pushed over to that side. There's a couple different ways you can go about it. You can do it with a pressure flaker, you can do it with indirect, but one of the easiest ways that I've found to do it is to just knock that square edge, or knock that edge off, and push it all to one side. And now you see I've got a platform here. That platform's kind of hard to hit, but I think we can do it here. Yeah, that drove a good flake right across that hump. So that flake we just took out all this. It dove in a little deep right here, but we'll probably be okay as long as we don't do that too many more times. We'll go ahead and take that off too. It's a little thin. Probably needs to be a little better platform there. And I've got a couple platforms here. We'll try to hit that one right there. Another really nice flake right across there. Took out a lot of that mass. Got a lot of mass back here in the back end. I try to avoid doing end strikes. Sometimes it's the easiest way to get to them though. This needs a better platform set up. Get that down level. Maybe I can, now this is much lower, I can drive into there and hopefully take that back off without ending up with two pieces of Obsidian. So that worked out nicely. Got that out of the way. Y'all have to bear with me if I repeat myself a few times. Sometimes I can't remember what I said and didn't say. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is some Davis Creek's Obsidian. It's kind of a nice color to it. They may call this silver sheen. And honestly, to me, this acts a lot more like a dacite than an Obsidian. It's got a plasticky texture to it versus a glassy texture. It seems almost like it, I don't know how to describe it. Unless you were working a piece of it, you might understand what I'm saying. I've had some more of this that was more gray in texture, and this is fairly gray if you look at it. It has a lot of gray sheen to it, but I've worked some that's even more gray, and it just does not seem to work well. So we'll go ahead and switch over to the indirect here. See if we can refine this down a little bit more. This is getting small enough that it may make a better point than a biface. Y'all are gonna have to bear with me on camera angles and stuff here. Like I said, this is the first time I've tried to film myself, so y'all bear with me. Old Jack Crafty makes it look real easy to film yourself, but it sure isn't. Seems like that camera hanging right there makes the rock a lot more fragile. I do other stuff besides Flint Knap too. I'm into the primitive archery, and hope we get another little cut there. Like I said, probably should be wearing a glove on that hand, but we try to suffer through. If it gets to bleeding too bad, I'll have to stop and put some super glue in it. When it's just me out here, it's not like it hurts or anything because it's so sharp, so I don't really worry about it, but I don't want to be bleeding all over camera. Doesn't look very professional, does it? I have that problem at nap ins too. I'll go to a nap in and try my best not to bleed on everything. So we're getting this thinned down pretty nicely. I wonder if sometimes I wonder what the Native Americans did. I think they were using some indirect percussion when you look at the artifacts. I don't know if they were using it in the exact style that we are with the under the leg thing. But when you look at the points and stuff they were making, it's pretty obvious they were doing something besides pressure flaking and direct percussion. Be hard pressed. Some of those points are fairly intricate, and you'd have to be a really good napper to get that with direct or direct and pressure. I think they were using indirect, but I often wonder, how did they protect their offhand? I would be surprised if they made gloves. There's some archaeological evidence for mittens, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but I don't know if there's any archaeological evidence for gloves. That'd be interesting to see. I may have to look that up. Maybe that'll make me feel better about it. Maybe I'll go to wearing some gloves then if I know they were. Not that I'm trying to be authentic because I'm using copper. But it might just make me feel better about it. I've never napped with gloves, even when I first started. And I think maybe that's why I tend to just not. I like to be able to feel the stone, and you can tell when you make a bad hit a lot easier. You can feel the vibrations through the stone. I would recommend, if you're a beginner, you definitely need to be wearing gloves, eye protection. I also I probably wouldn't try napping in my hand right off the bat. I'd probably try something different. Probably try on the leg. That's where I started at. I moved this after a few years of that. I was just seeing other people doing it and had to give it a try, and I ended up liking napping in my hand just a little bit more. I think it gives you better control over the stone and over your tool, but there's plenty of people who can make a way better point than I can that nap on their legs, so I think it's all about personal preference. Just about like what style of napping you use as well. There's guys that make amazing points that never touch an indirect stick. But for me, this seems like it's I'll say easier. You know, it just seems you got a lot more control. When I say easy, I mean control. Control goes a long way in Flint Knapping. If you can't hit where you're aiming, you know, and you can't hit with the right amount of force on that strike, you're not going to do very good. You have to really make sure that you're trying to give the stone the best chance to make it into a point you can. And if you're shocking it or missing your platforms, it probably ain't going to make it. And I hope anybody that watches this will give me some feedback on, you know, if they like the video style, if they'd like me to shut up. I don't know. You know, I watch a lot of Jack Crafty's videos, and I know that's something people have told him, but personally, I enjoy listening to him talk, but I may not have as much good philosophical knowledge to give y'all as he does. May have to, we're getting her down pretty thin. We're doing pretty good. There's a few spots along here I'd like to go ahead and get that edge refined. You're looking for a straight center line. You want the center line of this point to be straight all the way through. This will probably make a good platform. It may need some prep. You don't want to hit too heavy of a platform, especially at this stage. You know, you take too much of a flake, and the next thing you know, you're holding two halves of what was on its way to being a point, or a nice biface. I struggle with that too. I like to abrade heavy. I think I'm going to stop right there and do a little pressure work. Maybe try to set up some more platforms. Once I run around the edge on this thing, we may change our mind. I'm really sorry, y'all, about the bleeding on camera. I'll try not to do that. But since we're already here, I'm just going to carry on. It ain't bothering me none, but I'm sure there's some people that would prefer not to see it. I'll probably get a million comments about, you know, PP and everything else. That's assuming anybody actually watches this video. Keep bumping that stand with my hat. I had to turn it around backwards here so I'd quit nudging it. The more you learn. So that's looking pretty good overall. I'm actually not super upset with the thinness. I could probably push it a little more, but I would like to make something on camera that stays in one piece. So we may just pressure flake her down. You know, a lot of the artifacts you see aren't perfect, although I'm probably just as guilty as everybody else of chasing perfection. I mean, this becomes an art form. You know, you either get addicted to it or you don't do it anymore. You just keep trying to make the best thing you can make. It's a nice little knife preform or something like that, but we'll probably push it a little further. We'll probably go for a point just because it's kind of small. I do like to take these and half them when I make them, but this one's a touch small for that, so we'll go from there. Yeah, I think the next time I do any obsidian, especially on camera, I'll put some gloves on. Seems like I notice it more. So right here would be a good example of something that I'm probably going to have to use the indirect to fix. I can probably take an Ishi stick and run some flakes here, flip it over, run some flakes here, and take that out. But I wouldn't mind it being a touch thinner. Usually this obsessiveness I have here is usually how it breaks. I have a smaller indirect / Ishi stick here. I'm going to try it out. Braid pretty good with this smaller stick. It I feel like it needs a stouter platform. It doesn't have as much surface area. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run through this side. We're going to take some flakes going down this way, so they're going to come off of this side. Then we're going to flip it. We're going to take some flakes this way. And then we'll assess the back and see where we're at. Once we take this off, this center line may change, but right now it's looking pretty good. But we'll see how it looks after this. We're taking some pretty good flakes there, costing us some width, but you know, I still get on to myself. You can't be, sometimes you gotta sacrifice some width. I know that's, you know, everybody wants it to be as wide and long as possible, but when you're first beginning, to get your platform set up right and to get your point looking how you want it to, sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of that. So we're still a touch low. Kind of right here needs some addressing, and the best way to do that is to bring this edge up to this side and take a few flakes there to thin it off. And we may do that with the no, I think we're going to go ahead and do it with the indirect. So I'm going to take a couple more right here, and then I'm going to take a couple more right there, and that should even that wiggle out of that center line. You want to be careful, especially at this stage, thinning that center out too much. If you got a bunch of mass out there on your ends, you know, you'll end up with a broken point pretty quickly. I'm going to call that good on that side. We'll pressure flake that we'll get some of this off with the pressure flaker, and we'll adjust this edge back up. But again, I don't want to lose a ton of width, but I want to get this hinge right there off of this side off best I can. It seems like I kind of use opportunistic flaking. I don't necessarily set up platforms. Sometimes I will if there's something like a hinge I'm really trying to get at, but a lot of times it just seems to work out that there's one right there by it I can get it with. So on this particular one there's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take some flakes off the other edge since I want to thin a little, and then we'll come back and we'll set up a platform right here to drive across. We'll probably just do a side notch point on this. We've lost a lot of our width, and it's getting kind of small getting kind of narrow, I should say, for any big paleo type stuff or anything like that, which I'm not particularly good at anyway. So we'll take her down and maybe make like I believe it's called a Redding side notch. I struggle with point types as well. I kind of just make whatever the rock tells me it wants to be, which right now it's telling me it wants to be a side notch spear point of some kind, or just be left alone. So if you'll look, I don't know how well this will show up on camera, this side right here has a lot of mass left in it, so we need to bring a platform up here and take that off. And we still have that hinge. If that stays, I'm not going to be mad about it. It is what it is. I can probably get it out though, I would say, but if it's at the cost of breaking the point in half, I probably won't. But I definitely want to get this mass out of this middle. I don't like making thick points. They're just not as pretty. So we took a lot of that mass out. We're looking pretty good overall. A little bit down here by the tip. I think we're looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and take a couple more just small resetting this platform flakes right here. Probably use a touch of thinning down here on this end. Try to bring that center line up a little bit. So this side looks okay. I'm mainly worried about getting one or two more out of there. The base is pretty thin. Not bad overall. There's a couple little opportunistic spots here I can hit. That could have used a touch more braiding. We'll see here. Get those off of there. And then we'll set up a platform right there by that hinge. And then I'm going to call it on the indirect. Bring this side in a little bit, kind of try to isolate that platform a little bit. This edge has also been heavily abraded because I haven't been flaking it, so we'll just go ahead and take that off of there before we try to tackle that hinge. I'm not really trying to drive flakes right there. I'm just trying to eliminate that squared off edge. So now I'm going to hit this platform right here and try to drive a flake back in, take that hinge off. We'll see. It's a little low and a little thin, so we'll give it a little abrading and set her up. Maybe get a couple strikes off that one platform, or the one right next to it I set up when I took that edge off. But it looks like we got most of that hinge off. I can live with that. I think we'll stop right there, go ahead and pressure flake her into a uniform shape. We'll have to lose some width here. She's going to end up being really narrow. This would probably be a great issue point preform if I could put those kind of notches in. And we may do something like that. I can't make those narrow entry notches, but I can make some decent notches on here. Try to go for a semi issue point here, or we may just go for a side notch. That's assuming we get her to that point without breaking her into a million pieces too. That happens a lot. Probably going to post this over on the Flint Knapping Reddit. I don't do a lot of social media. I do have an Instagram. Just started it. I don't do any Facebook or anything. There's a very decent Flint Knapping page over on Reddit. Real friendly community. Some really nice guys in there. I think I'll post it on there, and I'd appreciate it if you're watching it from there that you know, leave a comment on the post on Reddit or on the video or something and let me know. That way I'm seeing where my feedback's coming from. And again, those guys on Reddit, there's a bunch of them that are way better than I am, but I just, you know, people have asked me, and maybe if I may not be a master, but I might be able to teach somebody something. You know, there's people at all different stages of their Flint Knapping journey, and every time you talk to somebody about Flint Knapping, we've all got a different opinion, and that's not to say somebody's wrong or right. It's just different ways of looking at the same problem. Call it a problem. Different ways of looking at the same thing. There is some generally accepted laws or truths, but there's a lot of stuff that we talk about that's kind of debatable. So this is looking okay. I want to get this edge brought, you know, kind of in. It's obviously not symmetrical currently. I really like my points to be as symmetrical as possible. You know, sometimes you can't get it there. Authentically, they weren't symmetrical at all. Find a few that are, but most of them were, you know, quick down and in a hurry from what I've seen. I live in Florida, so a lot of the artifacts you see around here are kind of crude. There's some really nice stuff that comes out. You know, some of the agatized coral points and stuff from down in South Florida, but where I'm at, a lot of the rock is kind of sub-tier grade. I kind of like to think they used up all the good stuff around here. You can still find it, but There's definitely places in the world where there's a much better abundance of rock. So right now I'm just taking some small pressure flakes. I'm not really trying to thin or drive across this platform or across this preform or anything. I'm just right now more or less just trying to take a few small flakes to kind of flake it into shape. You can see, should be able to see on the camera, that this edge has more round to it and this is more of a straight line. So this point will probably come over. This will kind of come off right here, and then we'll be looking pretty good. Switch over to a different pressure flaker here for this tip work. I'd like to keep it attached. This is a very pretty piece of stone. I really like this grayish colored obsidian here. I'm hoping that I'm keeping this in view. I didn't even think about it just a second ago. I had it way up close where I could see what I was doing. There's probably a name for it. If I had to guess, I think it's silver sheen. It comes from Davis Creek. I did pick this up myself several years back, and I know exactly where it came from, but I'm by no means an obsidian expert. Maybe one of you guys can tell me exactly what it is. I do like it. It works a little differently than regular obsidian, and the few pieces of it that I have seem to be more fragile. And I may have said it already, but this was all surface finds. When I was there, they had bulldozed a chunk of the mountainside, and all this was out and just free for the taking. If you do go out there, you have to get a permit, and we went to a little town there somewhere in, it was right on the California-Oregon line. I can't remember if it was in California or Oregon. We had to go get a little day use permit, and I think you could collect, at that point in time, 2 5-gallon bucket pulls per person per day, and I may be wrong about that. I don't think anybody minds too much, but when you're messing around with the rock sources, it's best to follow the rules, and that way it's left open for everybody else. So we're getting there. It's fairly symmetrical. Got a fairly good cross section overall. It's got a little, this could really use some more flakes taken off of it, but at this point I'm probably going to leave it. I'll straighten this out just a little bit more, but I won't take any more mass out. I wish I could get live feedback from you guys, because I'd be like, hey, what should this be? But when it's just me, I'm probably going to do the same old. I'd hate to admit to y'all how many side notch points there are in my point cases. That's kind of my go-to. It's super easy to do and pretty eye-catching. Looks pretty good. So we've got a pretty good center line. She's got some rough spots in her. She's not perfectly flat across there, but we'll take what we can get. This needs a few more just to finish her up here. That looks really good. I think I'll go ahead and try to corner notch in here. This is my last horseshoe nail, and she's a little short, but we'll just come in here from the corner and see what we can do. This is on second thought, I'll go from the side. I was about to say this is a really good way to lose an ear, and I'm going through this whole video, and I really don't want to mess it up right here at the end. So we'll just go in for a quick little corner or little side notch here. And then we'll come back and concave the base. And there's probably a name for this point, but I don't know it. I think it's called a redding side notch, but I think they also had more of a rounded profile to them, you know, something more like that. Dipped in, rounded out, dipped back in. I think Jack Crafty has a video on doing one of those on his channel. Beautiful point. We'll switch over to this flaker and put some larger notches in it. Won't go so narrow. I've got some more horseshoe nails around here somewhere, but I don't know where they got off to. May have to switch over to something different. I thought I wanted to put those in there with that. It was flat at one point in time, several points ago, but I don't want to crush. I don't want to crush big giant notches in here. I'd like to put something that at least looks slightly decent. The thinner you can get your points, the easier the notching is. This one's a touch thick, and when you get them like that, it just takes all that more force to push them flakes off deep in those notches, and you're likely to stall them out. One thing you want to try not to do is you want to try not to hit the sides of the point with the pressure flaker. That is almost a surefire way to break it. So if I'm flaking here and I hit that with the flaker, it's pretty much over for it. I'd say 9 times out of 10. I have a small screwdriver around here somewhere that I like. It doesn't work well on hard chirps, but on this soft obsidian, it ought to work just fine. You really need a soft, mild steel, something that's going to bite. A screwdriver is just a touch too hard. As you can see, it doesn't want to bite. I'm sorry if I keep taking that out of y'all's frame. I like to get it up close where I can see it. See right there, I've made a mistake. I've blown that notch out, so just to make it match, go ahead and blow this notch out. It's very unfortunate. I did exactly what I was saying not to do there, and hit the side of the point with the pressure flaker while I was trying to just get that last little bit out of those notches when they're plenty deep enough. My dad has a saying, and he's a perfectionist himself. So I'd like to think that he learned that lesson the hard way, that perfection is the enemy of good enough. In other words, when you push something too far, you know, trying to get it just exactly right, you ruin everything you had 5 minutes ago. Which is not an excuse to be lazy. It's just a good expression on know when to stop, which I myself struggle with. But that definitely applies to flint knapping. Know when to stop, or be willing to accept the consequences of what could happen if you don't. I really don't like these large blowed out notches, but it's no point, and it's no reason to throw a point away, so we're going to leave them, and we'll just try to make it look as good as possible around them. I think I've seen some points that look similar to this. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not super big on point styles. I, you know, would like to get there one day, but as of right now, I'm not. I mean, I don't know how much of that. I just realized I wasn't in frame, and now I'm wondering how much of the last 10 minutes of the video wasn't in frame. I may have to, before I do another one of these videos, if I do another one of these videos, find a different spot to set that camera, because I have a bad habit of when I'm doing pressure flaking to bring that point way up by my face where I can see what's going on, even though you probably lose some of your strength having it way up there by you. When I'm doing this finer stuff around the notchings and things like that, I like to have it up close. I'm fairly happy with that. You know, I should have done better. Notches are way blown out on it. Probably doesn't meet any authentic point style, but you know what? That's part of what I want to do here. Is I just want to talk about flint knapping and show some stuff I make. I know there's people that, again, like I said, are a lot better than me, but hope y'all enjoyed the video, and leave a comment, subscribe, leave me some feedback, let me know how I did.